If you would like to find your own unique style and voice with your pottery, do this technique to help you make it come to life. What is up, Shaping Nation? This is Nick Torres here. And on this episode of Shaping Your Pottery, I am going to be explaining a super simple thing that you can start doing today to help you start discovering your own pottery voice. So, very recently, I interviewed Tim C. And during this interview, Tim suggested that you should be learning, you should know all the steps that you have in your pottery that you're making. So, like, for example, if you're making a mug, maybe the steps are, throw the mug, shape the mug, add the handle, trim in the mug, and those are the steps. But he also suggests that if you want to actually find your voice with your pottery, you need to be adding more steps to whatever it is that you're working on. You may be at like 4 steps right now for whatever you're working, and it's about taking the simple and making it a little bit more complex slowly by adding more and more steps. Then that's how you find your own style, your own unique voice with your pottery. It's about adding more steps onto what is already to the steps you already have. And the technique he said to do that was to do this. It is pretty much to come up with, like, have one design and then you make a bunch of reiterations of that design until you have found something that you truly like, and you know the steps by heart, and you are able to keep doing those steps over and over again. But how exactly do you do that? So for this example that I'm going to do, for these steps I'm going to give you about right now, these 4 steps, we're going to focus on a mug, because a mug is probably the easiest thing that you can do to actually try to find your own unique voice in. So the first step that we're going to need, before I get into steps, is what we're going to need is a paper and something to write with, something to draw with. And we're not going to be making really any pottery yet. So the first step that you need to take is you need to draw out a normal mug. Draw out a normal mug. This is very important. Draw out a normal mug. And what you're going to do now is you're going to write out the steps you need to do to make that mug come to life. So step 1 is to draw out the mug, a normal mug, like a normal looking mug, and draw out the steps that you need to take to make that mug come to life. Okay. Step 2 here is to start drawing different handles. Maybe draw about like 10, or draw until you can't come up with any new ideas anymore. That's probably even better. And draw out just new handle designs. Maybe one of the drawings that you make, it looks like a rope handle, or maybe it looks like a hand handle. Whatever it is, draw out as many different handles as you can, and write out the steps that you need to take to make those come to life. Each one of them, make it come to life. So, like, including the actual steps you need to make with the mug. So, like, for example, with the normal mug, it would be make the mug, or throw the mug on the wheel, shape it, trim it, add the handle. 4 steps. The next design with your handle, let's say if you're doing the rope handle, so you have your normal steps for making the mug, but this time for the handle, it's, you roll out a couple pieces of clay together, you roll out coils and you roll them together to make it look like a rope, and then you attach them. That's 4 or 5, that's like 6 steps 2 steps that have been added into that step process. And you keep doing that, and you keep knowing the steps that you want to take in order to make those visions come to life. And you do that with every single one. You don't have to keep every single one. You just do that with every single one, because you're going to start knowing the steps a little bit better. You're going to be able to start visualizing it more and more and more. So here's a little recap so far. So step 1 is to draw out a normal mug and write down the steps that it takes to make that normal mug. Step 2 is to draw out 10 different handles or more. Go until you can't make any more, but ideally 10, and write out the steps you need to make those handles come to life. Now, step 3, now we're going to start focusing on the actual body of the mug. Instead of the handle, now we're doing the actual body of the mug. So now we're going to do the same thing that we did in step number 2, is we're just going to draw out different shapes for the actual mug itself. And you're going to do the same thing, and you're going to write out the steps you need to take to make those shapes come to life. Because the more you know about the steps, the better it is that you're going to be able to find your voice, and you're going to know what you actually want to make. So now that you have all these things drawn out, so you know, right? You have the normal mugs you compare everything to. And step 2, you have all these different handles, and you have all the steps that you need to do to make those handles come to life. And then step 3, you have all these different shapes and all these different steps to make those come to life as well. Finally, for step 4 is you actually have to start making. Don't try to make all the things that you drew out, because that's just going to be a little bit overwhelming for you. Pick maybe 2 things from the handles and from the shapes and just stick with those for a little bit and try to figure those out. You can even start adding in the other steps that you use to make other handles as well. Here is a quick recap of the 4 steps. So step number 1 is you want to draw out a normal mug and write down the steps it takes to make that mug. Step number 2 is draw out a bunch of different handles that you can attach to that normal mug and write down the steps it would take to actually make that handle come to life. And then step 3 is to draw out a bunch of different unique shapes that you could use for the mug itself, for the body itself. It doesn't have to be just shapes. It could be designs, or like maybe like a snake design, or like maybe, fireworks, whatever it is. It could be a bunch of different designs as well. It doesn't have to be just shapes. And then step 4 is you actually want to do it, but you don't want to do all of them. Pick your favorite, like 2 from each category. And so that is how a very, very simple thing that you can do to start finding your own unique voice. It's about slowing down now, knowing the steps that you need to take in order to make that voice come to life, and then doing the action to actually make it come to life. Because if you can't do the action, then there's no point in actually doing any of this, right? If you're not going to actually put your ideas to work, it's going to be pointless. So you have to put your ideas to work. That is step number 4, and it's probably the biggest step here, is to actually put your ideas to work. Start working on your ideas and start making them come to life. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one.